One guy who knows a little something about Austin is the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. We are joined for our weekly visit with James Lott. James, how you doing this week?
Great. What's going on today, my man?
We are doing just fine, now settling into the long haul of the offseason, but recruiting never sleeps. I first want to ask you, this weekend we saw, Twitter was abuzz about this, the Elite 11 / the opening, which there was a big thing going on in Dallas. For you, as a guy who has to consume all the recruiting data across the state, what do those camps do for you? Are those important times for you?
Oh, yeah, because what it allows me to do is get out and see some of these kids up close with the pads off, kind of see those guys interact with coaches and see how they're going to be coached, which is a little bit different than watching them in spring ball. So being able to see them in these type of events is big because I can get a true assessment on a lot of these kids and get a good look at these kids up close early in the recruiting process.
And you can see, I imagine, another big allure of it is you can see a lot of them at once. You don't have to travel from town to town to town to see one or two guys. You can see a lot of them at once. And is there value in seeing them kind of side by side running the same drills?
Yeah, there is some value in that, but you hit it right on the head. The biggest value for me is being able to see all these guys, the best in the state of Texas, in one place. So I'm not having to travel all over the state to see them. They're kind of coming to the DFW area. So these events are huge, and I look forward to getting to these events every year.
Today we're going to be talking wide receivers across the Lone Star State, and it shouldn't be any surprise with the way that offenses are going that Texas seems like it is absolutely loaded with wide receivers in the 2017 class. Is this a particularly strong class of wide receivers?
Pretty good class. I think one of the guys that I'm impressed with is Hezekiah Jones from Stafford. Speed guy, can fly, and when I say fly, he was the first place winner at the UIL state meet last year in the 200 meters, so he can get it. But a kid that can catch it, take it deep down the field, or he can catch a hitch and take it to the house. His dad is actually a coach there. He actually coaches him as a receivers coach, and he's also the head track coach there. But one of the kids that's out there that's getting a lot of looks, and a kid that I'm really impressed with. He's got big-time kick return skill, and one of those kids is going to be one of the more highly recruited guys around.
And I want to ask you about that. You mentioned the kick return skills. For a guy like with these top-tier athletes, obviously they're there for the most part to catch passes, but if you can return it, is that just a bit of a cherry on top, or is that something that kids are really or that coaches are really looking for?
I mean, if you think about it, you get one scholarship per kid. So if you got a kid that can come in and not only play receiver or running back, but also has big play capability, the ability to change the line of scrimmage every single time he touches the ball as a kick returner and punt returner, well, this kid is a bigger asset. And kids like that, like Jones, are kids that are going to be highly sought out because of what they bring to the table.
Another guy you mentioned that you really like is Omar Manning. Lancaster has a history of putting out big-time prospects, especially big-time skill position guys. Omar Manning looks like the next big thing. And I'll tell you the first thing that jumps off the page to me when I look at Omar Manning, 6'3", 210, that's a big boy.
You know what I think of when I see Omar? I watched this kid for the last 2 or 3 years develop and grow over the last 2 or 3 years. I saw him the last time when they played Frisco Lone Star in the regional championship. And first thing comes to my mind is Terrell Lawrence. Big, fast, long strider, big old kid that can go up and get it, jump ball receiver. Started since his sophomore season, but big frame kid that can really, with trying to create mismatches with offenses these days is big. So if you can find a kid that can run and go up and get the ball and change the line of scrimmage, you've got an advantage. And Omar Manning is one of those kids that kind of reminds me of a young version of Terrell Owens.
That's certainly high praise.
Yeah. And well-rounded kid, got a lot of old school values, loves to be coached. The coaches over there love him, and they say he's a refreshing type of personality compared to, these days you get kids that are recruited highly. It kind of changes their personalities. So for a high school coach, with a kid like Omar, being able to get a kid that's humble, that understands that he's just starting and he's got a long way to go, that he doesn't mind working, is a blessing. So I'm hearing great things about this kid.
We talked a bit about running backs back in a couple of weeks ago, and it seems like when you look at the offenses that colleges are running across the state, if you're a running back who wants to carry the ball 25, 30 times a game, there aren't a ton of options for you. Imagine that's exactly the opposite for wide receivers, where you look at the offenses running Tech at TCU and Baylor and A&M, these wide-open offenses, Houston. It seems like these wide receivers have great choices across the state if they want to be involved.
And if you think about it, with the Big 12 being our conference around here, everybody throws the football. Mm-hmm. So for these kids, and you're right, schools are now using 4 and 5 wideouts where they use one running back. So the advantage goes to receivers these days because there's so many options out there with what people are wanting to do offensively.
We're talking with James Lott, the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football, here on DCTF Live. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag DCTF Live. James, one more guy that you brought up that not only does he have a great name, but he also comes from a program and a coaching staff that has been known to put out a guy or two. It's Charleston Rambo, the wide receiver from Cedar Hill, and just the latest in a long line of great Cedar Hill players, huh?
Every single year, Coach McGuire is going to have several guys, and Charleston isn't anything different. Another receiver that comes out, 6'1", 185, 4'5" kid, transferred in there from Dallas Wilson High School. Another great athlete that's a sprinter, hurdler, and long jumper on the track team. You can't beat Texas when it comes to receivers, and there's no wonder every school in America wants to come in and recruit to Texas to try to come in and find these skill guys, because there's so many of these guys out there, and Charleston is another of a long line of great wide receivers to come out of the state of Texas and out of Cedar Hill.
It's funny because whenever we talk to Coach McGuire, he's always telling us, here's this next guy, here's this, this guy's going to be big, this guy's going to be big. And you'd think that he's just blustering, that he's just saying, oh, well, he's just talking up his kids. And then you go and you look and you're like, oh, yeah, he is really good.
Right. And he's one of the first coaches I call when I started recruiting and looking for young guys. I would call Coach McGuire and say, hey, who do you have out there that's a sophomore that's a big-time guy? And he starts naming off about 5 or 6 guys. I said, well, Coach, give me the ones that are that you think project out as Division I players. He said, I just did. and it's 5 or 6 guys. It's amazing. I mean, what they've got out there at those type of programs and the athletes you have to work with makes the job of coaching a lot easier, having those type of players.
He is James Lott. He is the official recruiting analyst of Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Follow him on Twitter at JL Scouting. James, appreciate your time, bud, and we will talk to you next week.
You guys have a good one.